Hello everybody and welcome to today's video, which is going to be on monitoring, so stake pool monitoring, and we're going to end up with something like this that you see on the web page here. And so to start things off, before we get to actual monitoring work, I just want to say some things about the people who work on CNTools and about the delegation situation currently, and I want to correct some stuff that I want to add some stuff to my topology updater video. So the first thing I want to say is thank you very much to Ola, Priyank, and Marcus from CNTools, as well as Homer J. They have provided some feedback on my videos, and they mostly approve of my work. So I'm very happy with that. And, they also have good suggestions and correct some of my mistakes. With regards to the delegation situation, I'm not particularly happy with it. There's a lot of things I'm not happy about, like fake IOHK pools having like 30 millions of stake. I'm not happy that IOHK has 20 pools. I think they should make them private. But okay, what I want to tell you guys is that I know my videos probably don't reach a lot of delegators, but they mostly stake pool operators. But I urge you guys to make it public, and say get more people to delegate to the pools that are extremely good and extremely important for the Cardano project in general, and I think those are pools from the contributors of CNTools. They have created these tools for us, and they are the ones who actually made it possible to to have so many pools in the system, really, because it's so easy to set them up now. And yet they are not very well known. They don't really market their pools much. And there's a lot of things going on Twitter with all kinds of stuff trying to attract delegators with giveaways and 0% fees and stuff. But I want to say that I'm inviting everyone to delegate to their pools. Check out who those people are on the GitHub CNTools documentation, or ask in the Telegram work group. If you stake to those pools, you know that you are doing a good thing for Cardano in general, and you also know that you will have stable rewards. These guys know what they're doing. They're mostly IT experts with a lot of years of experience, and the fact that they contributed so much to the project, the only right thing to do is really to, I think, to fill those pools up first and then worry about everything else. So I invite everyone to delegate to their pools, and also to market their pools a little bit for them. I will put a list of their tickers in the description, and with that I want to just add to my topology video the API that's used for the topology updater is actually maintained by a single person, which is Marcus from CNTools. So, first, a huge thank you to him for doing that. I mean, without that, we don't have peer-to-peer discovery. We don't have it with this even in an exact sense, but we have a very good substitute. So I'll put a link in the description as well for you can see the map of all the registered peers that the API fetches data from. So thank you once again, Marcus. I didn't know that he was the sole maintainer of that API. I had no idea actually who it was, but I know now. So I just want to, acknowledge his contribution and make sure that everyone understands. It's this guy who made that possible. So. I think that's pretty much it for my opening words. Now I'm just gonna say give you a little bit of an overview about what we're gonna do. So first, I recorded a little presentation on how the monitoring works, where does the data come from, and how it gets to the Grafana endpoint. And I'm gonna talk about the setup that we're gonna create in that presentation, and after that we're going to set up our monitoring Grafana and Prometheus server on the host, and that's going to give us monitoring of one node, and then we're going to, as the last step, add another node to the dashboard. And the goal of that step is to show you the process of adding more nodes to your dashboard, so you can add as many as you want and have all your monitoring on one location. So let's get started with the presentation. So here we are. Welcome to the presentation. It's going to be on Cardano stake pool monitoring with Prometheus and Grafana. So first, a little overview of what we're going to cover. So first, the monitoring data. We're going to talk about how exactly do we get the data to the endpoint, which is Grafana, that we see on our dashboard. So there's this thing called EKG from Cardano-node, which basically holds the data, and then Prometheus is the middle point between Grafana and this source of data. The host client setup, so we're gonna talk about the different services and connections that we need and the way we're going to set our monitoring up in this video. And lastly, I'm just going to mention some ports that we're going to run on and firewall settings that we need to account for that. So as I mentioned, the Cardano node runs this thing called EKG, which is basically an endpoint which serves as a point from which we can query real-time data of our node. So that's where Prometheus comes in. Prometheus queries the data from EKG of Cardano node and does some reformation on the data in order to be able to pass it on to Grafana. Basically, it formats the data in a way that Grafana accepts. And then we get to Grafana, which collects all the data it's getting from Prometheus, and through that historic data, it creates graphs, which we then see on our dashboard that is hosted on our Grafana server. Now, for our host client setup, we will have our host that's going to run the Prometheus server and the Grafana server. So we will eventually connect to this Grafana server here. And it's also going to run our Cardano-node and the node exporter. So the node exporter is Cardano-node gives us information about our actual Cardano-node, and node exporter sends us information about our server, basically. So things like CPU and memory usage and stuff like that. And then we can see that data in Grafana. So as I mentioned, Cardano-node has this little EKG thing that basically allows us to get the data. So Prometheus is going to query that data and get a response back. And then on our client, we will also be running Cardano-node and node exporter. And again, there's going to be the EKG. And Prometheus is also going to query that data and also going to get a response. And with all that data, Prometheus can then send it to Grafana, or Grafana can ask Prometheus, and then Prometheus will give it to Grafana. And this is the way the data is transferred to Grafana and eventually ends up on our dashboard. So this is the setup we're going to create in this video. Now some stuff about the ports. So the host is going to run a Prometheus server on port 9090, and this, as we mentioned, will be the data source for Grafana. The Grafana server is going to run on port 5000, so when we connect to it, this is the port we're going to connect to from a browser. So it's going to be our host IP and port 5000. And then ports for the actual data sources will be the node exporter, which we're going to set to 9091 on both host and client, and also the Cardano node, basically the EKG that the Prometheus is going to query. Is going to run on 12798 on both host and client, as we'll be running one node on each of those. And that's pretty much it. So let's get started with setting up the host server and getting some data up to the dashboard. So time to roll up the sleeves and get to work. First, let's check out the CNTools documentation for setting up monitoring. So there's a setup mon script from CNTools, and from what I understand, Pal Dorogit is the main contributor. I think he created the script, and then later on Priyank did I think a lot of work on it to update it. Yeah, good stuff there from those two. And so what it does is it installs Prometheus, Node Exporter, and Grafana servers. So we need that. We need all three of that for our host. And then configures Prometheus to connect to Cardano node and node exporter. That's good. Provisions the installed Prometheus server to be automatically available as data source in Grafana. So also good. Provisions two common Grafana dashboards. So I think the IOHK dashboard here is a little bit outdated. But we'll get to that later. And it deploys Prometheus node exporter and Grafana server as systemd services systemd services so that they start on startup. And yeah, that's it. Basically, it sets up the whole monitoring for you. So the first thing we're going to do is run this script on our host. And when I say host, I'm going to be using my one of my relays. And the next the client I'm going to connect to that host later on is going to be another node. So the host is the one that has the Grafana server. If we scroll down, we can see that we can edit the environment variables if we want to change some ports or anything like that. But we don't need to for our setup here. And that should be it. So let's get to work on running this script. So if you have ran prerex.sh, then you will have this script in your cnode/scripts folder. And if I ls here, I see setup mon here. So we can inspect it, and if we want to change the environment variables, we would do so here, as I mentioned earlier, but we don't need to do any of that, so we can just run setup mon from this directory. Now it's going to set up, as we said, Prometheus, Grafana, and the node exporter. Okay, and the two dashboards. There we go. It's already done, and it gives us some information about what's Prometheus, what's Grafana. So now we need to open some ports to make sure that everything can go through as it should. Now we need to open the ports for the Grafana server, so 5000 to be able to connect to the Grafana dashboard. We're going to need to open 9090 to allow Grafana to get the data from Prometheus. 9090 is the Prometheus server. We're going to need to open a port 12798, which is the Prometheus data from the cardano-node, and 9091, which is the node exporter. So let's do that, and I'm going to open it only to the necessary IPs. So like port 9090, the Prometheus, port 12978, the cardano-node Prometheus, and port 9091. Those are all data from our local machine, and I'm just going to open it to our local IP address. So I'm going to do sudo ufv allow protocol TCP. So from 127.0.0.1 to any on port 9090, that's the Prometheus. Okay, then 9091, that's the node exporter, and port 12978. I only realized later that actually I made a mistake here. It's not 12978, but it's 12798. So we want to do sudo ufv allow protocol TCP from 127.0.0.1 to any on port 12798. That's the rule we want. Please, which is the cardano-node, matrix. Okay, and now I'm going to open the Grafana port, and I'm going to do from any to any here because we want to connect from a different machine, not from our host. So I'm going to open port 5000 to be able to do that. Okay, and that should be all set up now. So let's try to log into Grafana. So what we need now is our IP address. So we can do ifconfig. Okay, we don't have NetTools. So let's install NetTools. Now we can do ifconfig, and we can find our IP address here and copy that into our web browser and specify the port 5000. And this should open Grafana now. Yeah, it's working. So the username and password are set to admin and admin at the start. So just log in there, and it's gonna prompt us to change our password right away. So just change your password. We can save that, and here we are. Now we're in the Grafana. What we need to do is add a data source. If we go to this dashboard, okay, it looks like Prometheus is already set up as a data source. So if we go to data sources, yeah, there we go. Prometheus is set up. It's on the port 9090, and everything is working fine. So we have the dashboard here. Now, as I said, this IOHK dashboard is a little bit outdated. So what we can do is, so like stuff like this, current node version, current protocol era, and that's all old. So we can try and find the updated one from IOHK. So we can just Google IOHK Grafana dashboard Cardano, and there's some docs on how to add a Grafana dashboard, and somewhere down here there is the JSON from Cardano Ops repository. So this is basically the JSON that we're gonna copy all of it and try to import it into our Grafana. So if we go to dashboard, if we go to dashboards, manage, and new dashboard, and now in top right dashboard settings, we can call it, my dashboard one, and we go to JSON model and copy, paste this in. There, we saved it, and that should be, we should have this dashboard now here. And there we go. So this is the one I showed you at the start of the video. It has some stuff. Now you are free to create your own dashboard, and I encourage you to do so because optimize it to your liking. But just to show you how to get some stuff. Let's say we want to add a panel. We go add a panel, and then here we're in the query now, and here we select the data source we want to query. So that's always going to be our Prometheus, and the metrics, we can just use the drop down and go, for example, Cardano or EKG or any of these, and we can select which metric we want to show. For example, I'll just pick anyone. It would take some time, to read and understand what these metrics actually are. But, if you just click one and take it back, and now here, you have this metric you selected, and you can edit the panel title, you can edit the legend and the way it's presented and all that stuff. So that's it. I'm just going to remove this one, and I'm going to leave this as the default IOHK one. And that's pretty much it. Now, we have the host server running, the Grafana is running, it's working, it's getting data from Prometheus, which is getting data from our cardano-node. And now what I want to show you is how to add another node, so that, for example, here we get Cardano last block height for our node for my USA relay. But I want to add, another node here, and to have two of them in the same place. So let's get on to that. So to do that, we need to configure our other server, our other Cardano node, to basically open ports for the Prometheus on the host server to be able to query our Cardano node and get the data, and then send it to Grafana as I explained in the presentation. So I'm going to close this terminal now to get into my other server, which is going to be a producer for the pool we created in the video, the Kobe one. And we will then get back to this one to set up, to configure Prometheus to look into the other server. But for now, I'll just close this, and we are in the our producer. So I'll be careful not to, expose the IP of this server, but yeah, I think I can do that. I can do everything without exposing it. So what we want to do is, as I said, set up the node to be able to query the data. So first, we have, as we talked about, we have two data sources, right? We have the Cardano node, the EKG, and we have the node exporter. One is for Cardano node, the other is for more system related data. So first we're gonna configure the Cardano node one, and that one is pretty easy. We're gonna go into our CNode folder, and we're gonna go to files, and in here we have the config JSON that we're going to edit. And all we need to do is to scroll down to where it says has Prometheus. So this is what controls, where it's listening for queries to Prometheus, and it's by default set up to only listen to for the host. So for this server that we're in now. So we want to change that to 0.0.0.0, and that's going to basically listen to any address that queries it, but we're going to set up our firewall in a way that only allows our host IP to make queries. And as you can see, the port is 12798. That's the default port for the Prometheus used by Cardano node, and we're going to use that one. So we save this. Now we also need to restart the node in order to apply this. I have already stopped it, so I'm just gonna open a new session and start it. So if I go to my scripts folder, and here I have a CNode producer script, and there we go. The node is started, and it's going to take some time to read the local database and start syncing. So while it's doing that, before that is done, we can't get any data. Okay, so we need to get the node to show us the latest epoch, and after that Prometheus can query it. So, but that's basically the node metrics setup. Just changing the JSON has Prometheus parameter to listen to all IPs. Now, the next thing I talked about was the node exporter. So that is the service that gives us data about the system, and on our host, the setupmon script from CNTools configured that node exporter service for us, but we don't really want to run setupmon here because we don't want to install Grafana server and Prometheus server on here. We just want that on our host, and from our client we just want to query the data. So now we will be able to query data from the cardano-node, but we need to set up the node exporter service. So rather than running the setupmon script again, I have written another script. I have written I created this script, but it's mostly just code from the setupmon script from CNTools. This part is mine, and the rest is just I picked some stuff that I want from CNTools and use that. I had to do a little bit of editing, but it's like 90% CNTools code. But anyway, this script is set up only to install the node exporter service, which is what we need. So I'm going to fetch that script onto my client now, and then we're going to run through what exactly it's doing. So I'm going to go into my root directory, and I'm going to create it's fine. I'm just going to use my TMP folder, which is where I have my prereqs, and I'm going to wget and the link to my script. So if we ls here, now we have it here, and it's called setupnodeexporter.sh, and I'm just gonna go through what it does. So some environmental variables, basically just specifying the node exporter port, and then it's going to go into the temporary directory. It's going to make a new directory called monitoring. And here it's going to get the node exporter, basically the code for node exporter, and it's going to install it and then create a systemd service so that this service starts listening on the port we specified, and that's going to be our NXP port, which is going to be 1991. After that, it's going to reload the daemon and start the service, and also enable it so that it starts every time we restart the server, and it's going to print our port. So yeah, that's it. Before we run it, we need to make it executable. So chmod set up the node exporter, and now we can run it. It's now getting the script, and there we go. And not the script, I mean the node exporter, and there we go. It's it created the service, so we can check that out with system. Let me just clear this. We have our port 1991. That's the important part we want to know, and we can clear this. And if we do systemctl what's it? It's just status, or is it service status? I think it's systemctl status node exporter. And there we go. We see that it's active and it's running, and it's listening on our host address, conveniently not exposing my real IP address. And that's it. So now we have the data source for the Cardano node, and we have the data source for the exporter. The next thing to do is check that our node is in fact it's still loading, so the data is not ready to be queried. But while it's doing that, we can go back into our host server and configure Prometheus to query this server as well. Okay, yeah, before we do that, let's open the required ports on this server. So I want to open the ports 9091 and 12798 for the node exporter and cardano-node metrics respectively. And I want to open them only to the IP address of my host. So I'm going to do sudo ufv allow protocol TCP from, and now the address of my host, which I'm just going to get from PADI. This is the address of my host of one of my relays. So allow protocol TCP from to any on port 9091. That's going to be the node exporter. And also to 12798, which is going to be the Cardano node metrics. That's it. We edited the config, we restarted the node, we created the node exporter service, and we can do a final check if we do netstat tulpn. Okay, I don't have NetTools on this server either. Let's type here install NetTools. And if we do netstat open, we'll see that everything we're listening for, and that will be 12798, the Cardano node metrics, and 9091 as well. And with that, our client setup is complete. We just need to set up our host to query the client. So let's get back to that. So I'm just gonna clear this. No, actually I'm just going to close this, and I'm gonna go back into my relay, where our which is our Grafana host. And now what we want to do is add some targets to the Prometheus. So here we ran the setup-mon script, so it provides us with a predefined directory setup. So if we go to CNode home and then back one, we'll see that we have a directory called monitoring here, and we can go into there, and in here we have Prometheus, which we want to edit a little bit, and Prometheus.YAML. In here is where we tell Prometheus where to look. So originally, as part of the script, it was set up to get data from our local node, so from our local Cardano node and our local system node exporter. And basically what we want to do is add some new targets here. So in the same way that this has been done, we can just copy it over and copy it over again. And so instead of our job name being called USA Relay, we'll call this one Kobe cardano-node. For example, you can call it whatever you want. And this one will be called Kobe node exporter. So now I have to add the IP of my server, and since that server is a producer, I cannot show you, but just add your IP address in here. The ports are the same. Cardano node on. Okay, sorry, we need to change this. So this is our job name Cardano node, and we know that the metrics for that come from the port 12798 and the node exporter 9091. So after we change this, I will just change the IP addresses on here, and you should do the same, and that's it. One more thing I want to show you is that the way this is set up now, if we go to Grafana, we have this legend, and it's not very pretty. It's like it's showing instance job blah blah blah. For now, I just want to change this instance not to show the IP address, but just to give it a name. But the process is for labeling things like that is the same. So I'm going to have a job name and then targets, and I'm going to add labels here, and for labels I'm going to have instance, and I'm going to call it Kobe C node, and my exporter I'm going to call it well, the label for instance, and I'm going to call it Kobe node exporter. That's it. Now I'm just going to add my IP address in here, replace the access with the IP address, and I'm going to save that file, and then I'll get back to the video. So I have saved the file, and now I just need to restart the Prometheus service to apply these changes. So I'm going to do sudo systemctl restart Prometheus. There we go, it's restarted. We can also do status, and something went wrong, so let's see what that was. Failed with result exit code. It failed to start it. Okay, I just tried to restart it again, and now it's working. So I didn't know that this could happen, but I guess it can. I'm not sure why exactly it happened, but it seems like a minor issue, so just tried restarting it again and it worked. We see that the Prometheus service is active, and that's all fine. So if we go to our Grafana, we see something wrong. So let's go back to our Prometheus settings, and actually if we do systemctl status Prometheus, there's probably something wrong with it. Yes, so now it's starting to make sense why that restart service didn't work. It's obviously because we have something messed up in the config. So we'll edit it once again. I removed my IP from here, and I think I know what the issue is. The issue is that in this format, spacing is very important, and I believe I used a tab here, and I don't think we can do that. So I'm gonna fill it with spaces, and the rest I think I filled with spaces. So I think that should fix it now. Okay, not. Oh, I'm just gonna replace this with spaces and change my IP to my real IP, and then save this file. Alright, so that's saved, so let's try restarting it now. Prometheus. Restart. Prometheus. There we go, and now we can just do the status. Failed again. We got the failed again, so there's still something wrong with the settings. So it looks pretty good now. The only thing I can think of is the space between the instance and our instance name. That might be it. So I'm gonna enter my IP here and give this a shot now. So let's try restarting Prometheus now and check the status. And there we go. Now it's restarting the way it should, and it's saying, servers ready to receive web requests. So if we go back to our Grafana now, we'll see that it's now working fine. So what we have is two nodes here. Our local node on 127.0.0.1 and our Kobe C node, which we labeled that way in the settings, and we can see both of those data here. So other than that, we only see one node exporter, so that thing is missing. So for example, here we only see our local node exporter. So I think I know why that is. I made a small mistake in the setup node exporter script. So I'm just going to get into my Kobe server. 1 second. There we go, and I'm gonna go into the TMP folder where I have my setup node script, and yes, so the node, the IP is set to 127. So like for the local IP, so it's only listening on the local IP address. We don't want that. We actually want it to listen to every address, and we set the firewall to listen only to our, not listen, but to allow only the request from our host IP. So we need to change this to 0.0.0, and I already changed the script on GitHub, so you don't have to worry about this step. It's going to be fine when you do it. And I'm going to save that, and I'm going to run that script again. Yeah, I didn't even need to change it because yeah, actually I didn't need to change it. Okay, so now we're listening on 0.0.0.0, and that's fine. We should see the new exporter here soon. No, sorry. Yeah, we reran the script and we're listening on the right address now. Well, actually, we're not because we didn't restart the node exporter service. So the script is only for the initial setup. It starts the service, but since the service was already, running, then it didn't restart it. So we just have to restart it. So I don't know if we need sudo. Str restart node exporter. So this is on my producer that I want to do, and that should be fine now. If we go to Grafana, it should be able to fetch the exporter, and there we go. We have our new data set for the Colby node exporter. It's very small, but it's here. It needs time, to build a graph. There we go. It looks like something now if we see both of them. So there you go. That's how you add another server. I apologize if it was a little bit filled with tiny mistakes, but I guess that's also a good thing to have in the video. These things don't always go smoothly, and if you see me making mistakes, then it might help you as well if you come across the same ones. And it shows you, how careful you have to be, for example, with YML files, be careful about spacing and all that stuff. Be careful with ports, be careful with services. You have to, every time you make a change, you have to restart them. There's a lot of things to keep in mind and, to keep track of. So, but there you go. That's the process. So now you can customize this. And I think this cast period is, I'm not sure why it's not showing. I think it's an old from the IOHK dashboard, from the default. It's just an old thing. If we actually go to Cardano and we can select remaining cast period, or we can select the current cast period, and we will get the current cast period, which this panel was originally for. So just keep that in mind, that some of the things on the default IOHK dashboard are a bit old. Actually, I think this is the only one. But yeah, now you can, as I showed you, you can customize this to your own needs. My plan with the videos is well, I'm thinking if I continue this kind of 2 videos per weekend trend, then next weekend I hope that I can do 1 video on customizing this dashboard, and I guess by that time I will set up my own dashboard in the way I want, and then I can show you how I did that, and how if you want to use something like that, give you the JSON for it or something like that. And that would be like the first shorter one, and then the next would be the second one would be on using this monitoring to actually put some alert systems in place. So I have to see what kind of stuff would be a good start. But like, if cardano-node is down, if the process is killed or something like that, it notifies you, it sends you an alert. And then moving on from there, even try to implement some automated recovery systems or mechanisms. So yeah, that's the plan, just so you know. I'm not sure if it's going to work out completely, but that's where I'm going next. So yeah, I hope you enjoy that. I hope you manage to set your monitoring up, and Thank you very much for watching. If any of you, get stuck, have problems with setting this up, feel free to get in touch on Telegram. The group has really grown. It's like over 100 members now. A lot of helpful people in there, and I'm also I try to be active in there. But to be honest, I spend a lot of time on these videos and stuff, so not as active as I want to be. But if you have any problems, I will do my best to help you. So yeah, that's it. Once again, support the people who created CNTools. Delegate to their polls. Give their polls a shout out on Twitter, stuff like that. They are the ones who make all of this much easier for us. So I don't think I have anything more to say. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.